This is Comic Book Lexicon. I'm Joshua Grand Rapids.
I'm Stephen Thomas.
It may not look like it on the cover here, but this is a Jack Kirby comic.
Yeah, this is
Prestige magazine format.
This is our 1971.
Yeah.
And this is like an occult fanzine that Jack Kirby curated.
Made. Mark Evanier was his assistant during it. The only piece of artwork in here not produced by Jack Kirby is in the back. Sergio Aragones.
Yeah. So this is a very unique part of comic book history, and we wanted to take a look at it with Halloween coming up.
Yeah. We're posting this on Halloween.
Yeah, this is going to come out on Halloween.
Welcome to our Halloween special. How you doing? I'm Josh. I think I might have already said that. All these collages, I'm guessing including that Charles Manson eye right there.
Yep, that's...
You know you're a famous killer when they recognize your eyeball. All this is Jack Kirby.
Yeah.
Just going ham.
So wait, this is when he came over to DC, right?
Yeah, he left Marvel and came over to DC. And from my understanding, DC produced this.
Yeah.
This was one of the creative freedom pieces of the contract, but it's put out through Hampshire Distribution Limited, and I can't find anything that links them with DC.
Yeah.
But it might have been something that DC did, so they didn't have to go through the code. There's nothing crazy in here,
no.
But it's crazy for Jack Kirby, and you do have people talking about killing the president.
Yeah.
You got
black magic.
A woman remembering in a past life when she was burned at the stake.
Because if we think about this in context, this is 71, so it's like after where basically comic books all got reformed to be geared more towards younger audiences.
Yeah.
And they like went through that kind of like
we're at the tail end of that, and on the entry point of the Bronze Age where things start.
So they spent all of the 60s like trying to like prove to the world that comic books are okay. They're not tools for the devil and stuff.
The world is full of two things, Jack Kirby would say. There's the wholesome, and there's the more downbeat, and I operate in the wholesome. To quote him as directly as my memory can go, I wouldn't call this wholesome.
No.
But it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. It's just great, to see an artist like him. What's one of the things I think artists appreciate about him is that we all have lots of ideas.
Yeah.
But most of us can't execute as many as he does. So like for most of us, the idea of like
we're not married and we don't have kids.
Kids, yeah. So to do all these to just have like probably a passing idea, or maybe it's something, these are pet projects he always wanted to do, labors of love, and then he's just like, yeah, like if I come over to DC, I'm just gonna like do these projects right away while I'm also planning what are all the titles? New Gods, Mr. Miracle.
Yeah, the whole Fourth World saga. So the first wave of what he did at DC would have been, what you said, New Gods, Mr. Miracle, Forever People, I believe, even though that wasn't technically part of the Fourth World thing as far as my knowledge goes. I might be wrong. It's a book that I've never picked up yet. And Jimmy Olsen, I think Orion had his own book.
It's okay. Some Jack Kirby head will talk shit to us in the comments.
Yeah.
So feel free to give us your feedback.
If you're mad we have this and you don't, please pick this video apart. Because I just set you up.
So it's interesting, this is all in this kind of like navy blue coloring or whatever. Or at least that's what my eyes see. Maybe
No, it's a deep navy blue. It looks like the smock at a grocery store.
Yeah. What is gorgeous to me about this is there's a lot of places where everything isn't blacked out. You see the washes.
Yeah.
Which, in a lot of comic books, there's black and white and then all the colors. There's sometimes half tones, but you don't see as much of this, like, done beautiful washes.
Yeah, and for anyone that doesn't know about Spirit World, this is a woman who is having her first psychic premonition, maybe her last psychic premonition. Our crypt keeper, so to speak, our host of the series, our Rod Sterling, is Dr. Mass right here. And he's telling us about this woman being an example of a phenomenon where the collective unconscious discovers something that's going to happen. Like precognition being a matter of all of our brains tying together in a giant computer and dissecting probability to an absolute. And so she knows President Kennedy's going to die. And this is the only time she's had a dream that was this real. She's 100% certain it's going to happen. And she keeps calling the president. Well, she keeps calling, the president's office.
Calling the White House.
And, of course, everyone thinks she's batty.
Yeah.
And then writing literally on the wall right there, Dallas, Texas.
Yeah.
You can hear Glenn Danzig.
Okay, it says Lucille's now being led to the very root of her fear at breakneck speed. It's the brick building and its rows of windows. There's that one window, dark and ominous, growing larger and larger, like a target caught in a sniper scope. Yes, it's there, in the darkness, beyond the windows, smooth practice motion, and the sound. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm reading.
It talked earlier of her hearing in the beginning of her premonitions the sound of that click click of someone practicing with the bolt on their rifle.
Yeah. And then it cuts back to our host.
Yeah, Dr. Mass.
Our narrator. Was there a psychic network operating? Was it sparked in some still undiscovered way, leaping from circuit to circuit, from individual to individual? Did you make a phone call that day? This is awesome.
Now we move on to this haunted house.
Another Calder.
Yeah. For those of you who watched yesterday's video, the Devil's Night video, there was a character in there named Calder. This is the Calder estate, and it's a nexus point practically for paranormal activity. Got the coolest drawn ghosts I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
That's such an amazing way to show this like almost gelatinous but like steamy transparency.
It's crazy. It's like, this is like, if you saw something like this now, you'd be like, oh, it's Photoshop or whatever.
Right.
Like, just like layers. He can like see the layer. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, he has the whole image in his head.
Yeah.
And they keep seeing apparitions throughout this entire place, and they realize that they are definitely not ghosts. They are most likely apparitions of like the human energies that our actions emit and imprint onto places.
Okay.
And so we see this woman at first. She terrifies him, and he's trying to keep his cool. I love
Gorgeous.
this. Like,
yeah.
That's such a good try not... Like, we don't know Jack Kirby as much as we know him for being amazing and in one way or another wanting to be him.
Yeah.
I don't particularly know him for being, like, a very nuanced portrait artist.
Yeah.
And you can just see, don't be scared. But after he has this encounter with this female apparition where he's trying to keep his cool because he's still not certain that these are actively conscious ghosts or something else. So he's pursuing this apparition, trying to figure out what's going on, and now he's starting to realize that this whole house might be acting like a record. And he sees what he describes as a giant black man. There was a underground railroad stop point at this house, and there was also a Confederate raid that happened upon this house. And he's seeing this act of vengeance play out against one of the raiders.
Wow. And is this supposed to be like a, what is that called? Like a meat tenderizer
It's
thing?
just a big mallet.
Yeah.
I think he wanted to say that this man was worthy of his vengeance, so he gave him his own Mjolnir.
Yeah. This is a crazy. I remember looking at this panel here.
Yeah.
Wow, that's.
These apparitions start commoding so violently that he feels the house shake like there's a whirlwind inside, which had happened. We're not going to talk about it, but I'm not being creepy just for a video.
Yeah.
I just don't want to tell a whole 45-minute story about something impossible to explain.
Tell me this isn't Frank Miller with the, or like all the folds and the creases. Yes. I don't know. This is cool, and I love this. This is just sometimes when I look at something like this, sometimes with Kirby, I feel like his experiments are just like they end up just being final.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's just like, what would it look like if I did these different, if I played with these different shapes or whatever. Like, it just looks so interesting.
And the house eventually collapses under all this supernatural, literal weight, and he kind of gives his summary that I've been more or less talking about this whole time.
You want me to read this?
Yeah, why not?
All right. It says, well, actually, I'll start with this. What abrasive elements in the turbulent, passionate history of that house accumulated to form such a strong, destructive force? How, what, where, and why? We'll have to fashion more controlled observations to get the answers. Man is known to generate heat, electricity, and chemical action. Is there some yet unnameable byproduct generated by man in his times which outlives their passing? A product which does not go to the grave.
Right.
So like very spiritual, like, yeah. Children of the flaming wheel.
Hippie psychics.
Yeah.
Your average parent of your average boomer might have been disgusted by all this, but he was fascinated. And I'm assuming this was after he moved out to California.
Yeah.
Out to Thousand Oaks, and
I
don't know if he put out an ad or what. I want the hippies to come to my house, and we're gonna take some pictures.
Take some pictures. Now look, if we had 2 copies of this, we would tear this fucking poster out and show it to you. But we only have 1 copy, so we're not gonna do that. But
we're gonna show it to you. We're just not gonna take it out of the book.
Yeah.
I'll show you the poster. I just won't show you this material.
They have one of these at Lang still. It's like quite expensive.
Yeah, it might be in better shape than mine, but yeah, it was like $70 or something like that.
Yeah, not a
big sticker on it that says poster still intact.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I bought this for $20 or whatever. But yeah, that whole photo spread is all a narrative about young hippie kids exploring the concept of astral projection.
Okay. The Screaming Woman.
Yeah, this is the reincarnation bit. And like I'd made jokes about this when I first got it. I took it on Instagram like, I don't know how Roz feels about this, Mr. Kirby. It's a little sexy there, Jack Kirby. But
a half of her titty.
Yeah. But like I think part of the reason that stands out, like you don't, similarly to like the nuance, you don't think of Kirby as drawing particularly attractive faces. He just makes really powerful, arresting.
Yeah, really dynamic features.
This is like really tenderly rendered, and she's super beautiful.
Yeah, like really soft, not as angular as the way he would usually draw.
Yeah, it's almost like he's drawing the woman that John Romita Sr. wants to draw when he's drawing Mary Jane.
Yeah, like the romance comics vibe or whatever.
And Kirby did co-invent the romance comic.
Yeah.
So like this is pieces of other things he's done, maybe manifesting.
Yeah. I mean, gosh, you can see so many other artists and the way he draws some of these portraits.
Yeah, and a lot of people say the faces he draws are samey, but I haven't seen. her character's face remains consistent and recognizable as her, but you don't see people looking the same all but for their hair color or their hairstyle in this either. Like, everyone is their own unique person.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I mean, even if you look at these two faces side by side, I mean, up and down, she has the big, dark eyes. She has the thinner with the pupils and different hairstyles, different shit. Her face, like, these are subtle things that we notice maybe because we draw. So you always, like, draw things in your mind when you see them or whatever.
Yeah.
So, like, I can see her. She has, like, a pretty distinct jaw or whatever, and hers is just, like, the oval shaped or whatever.
They both have completely different noses.
Yeah.
And that's hard to pull off too when you've got two people with, like, it's not like he was like, I'll give one a big nose and one a little nose. Like, they're both like really modest little button noses, but they're distinct.
For sure.
I wouldn't say this is Kirby at his best because I don't even know how to qualify that. But I haven't seen a lot of Kirby stuff that operated with this level of nuance, and so it's a real joy to look at.
No, it's like, sorry, it's like pretty elegant for him, like you said.
But basically, this woman that this character is remembering, that she's having dreams about being, survived a massacre in Lorca, Spain. And it happens to be around the Spanish Inquisition, so when they find her, they decide apparently that she couldn't have survived if she wasn't a witch. So the lone survivor looking for her fiancé, she's looking for her lover who's probably dead, and is arrested for being alive. Pretty heavy stuff for Jack Kirby, especially if you're used to stories about punching and running around. Like,
yeah, you get the sense that, like, especially with this one and the other zine that he released through the same
the Days of the Mob.
Yeah, these were some topics that he, like, maybe wanted to incorporate into some of his Marvel stuff, but maybe were not allowed to or edited out. You know what I mean? And, like,
or maybe he tried and his notes in the margins were just ignored.
Yeah,
because there's plenty of stories about him wanting Sue to be a stronger woman, but no matter what he wrote right here around the gutters, when Stan would put the dialogue in, Stan would put in the dialogue that he wanted.
Yeah. And they're about to burn her, I suppose.
Yes, she's going to get burned at the stake.
Yeah. And then what's going on here with this?
This started with her listening to these tapes, and this is the auto-hypnosis session that created those tapes. So it's like the tape ends and she's kind of just saying the rest. So everything in this speech bubble is what has been in these captions so far.
Yeah.
And now her reaction is a little funny. The woman was Miranda. Poor Miranda. For her sake, I hope she was just a bad dream, a figment of my own fears.
And he says, great breakthroughs are never made without trial. Now we shall see if the dream has a base in reality. And so it began, the research that dug into a period when King Ferdinand and Queen Isabel asserted their rule and plunged Spain into domestic war and turmoil. And that's the end.
Yeah. And this is all about Nostradamus. Anyone who doesn't know about Nostradamus, look it up. The things you read are going to be a lot more interesting than anything we have to say.
Yeah.
And it's just taking you through his whole life, and all the prince that lost his eye in the jousting match. That's like a famous one that he pointed out. And we're hearing about all these different things, like Marie Antoinette getting beheaded. And this one was interesting because I didn't even know about that. He apparently prophesied some massacre in Paris where they bound couples together and drowned them.
I remember when I looked at this the first time, I was just horrified by the drawing.
Yeah.
And then when we, read what it was like, oh wow, that's very dark.
Yeah. And I imagine, especially like some of the battlefield stuff that he's drawn, not necessarily this Napoleon gimmick, but like is the Spanish thing where like people are just like dead bodies everywhere.
Yeah.
He was a war vet with PTSD.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jack Kirby was a very polite, soft-spoken man, but there's apparently tapes of him saying fuck the only time you'll hear him say fuck when he's talking about the war. Like he just goes to another place and starts like becoming very tense. But the end of this is the very best part. I mean, Hitler, Nikita Khrushchev, Mao Zedong. Yeah, of course, all the lead-ins to the end of the world. This is it. Don't plan on visiting Paris in the year 1983. So, happy Halloween, everybody. We gave you a short one because we know that you probably have other stuff to do, even if you're not trick-or-treating. You probably made plans at home to stay sane.
Halloween's on a Saturday this year, so
yeah, we don't want to get in the way of any of your fun, and that's why we're letting you know. Don't go back in time to Paris. Our information is in the description for our Instagrams, respectively, for the show's Instagram. And at that, I'd like to thank you for watching.
Yep.